The Seymour red dot is one of the oldest reflex sights that's still being made today. These were introduced in 1993, making them about a decade older than the Ultradot Pan AV I talked about previously. 30 years later, not much has changed, and you can still buy new production Seymours direct from Amazon.com in a huge variety of colors, body styles, and even dot sizes. The staying power of the Seymour is due almost entirely to its dominance in competitive shooting. They keep making these things because high-level sports shooters keep using them, and they keep winning. The Seymour is built for competition shooting, but like a lot of products made for sports shooters, they still saw some use in military and tactical shooting as well. The version we're looking at today is the CTRW, aka the Tactical Railway. We'll see if the word tactical is appropriate here. I have no expectation that the Seymour will outperform the current crop of modern red dot sights, but I am curious if this thing would have been a valid option maybe 10 or 20 years ago. Red dots have been around for a lot longer than 30 years. The original Aimpoint electronic was introduced in the 70s, and by the early 90s there were several clones and competitors already on the market. What made the Seymour different was the open emitter design and extremely minimalist housing. Contemporaneous red dots like the Aimpoint and the Tasco ProPoint were big old tubes, but the Seymour boasted a virtually unobstructed sight picture, ideal for shooting fast with both eyes open. The original Seymour is still sold in a huge variety of configurations. The Slide Ride series have no mount and are designed for low-profile mounting on handguns with cantilever rails that are extremely popular with race gun shooters. Sometimes you even see these mounted on sideways mounts to get the dot even lower to the bore. You can also get the Railway model, which has a pre-installed Picatinny rail mount, but is otherwise the exact same thing. The CTRW, aka Tactical Railway that I have, comes pre-installed with the Tactical Spacer, which raises the sight up to lower 1/3 co-witness height. This is the original polymer body version, but you can get the Seymour with an aluminum body instead. I highly doubt the aluminum model is any more durable. I bet it mostly exists because it's slightly heavier, which competition shooters love, and maybe because some people just freak out when an optic isn't made out of aluminum. Whether you get the aluminum or plastic version, I don't think the Seymour Railway is rugged enough for military use. The freestanding lens housing seems like it would be lucky to survive a drop or an impact with a Humvee door. Likewise, the totally open emitter seems like a liability. It could easily accumulate junk that would block your dot. Unlike most open emitter optics though, it would be barely an inconvenience to just wipe it off with your thumb. For tactical or defensive use, yeah, these things should be totally fine. If they can hold up to the firing schedule of high-level competition shooters, they can handle the few range trips a year and being leaned against the wall of your bedroom. The feature set of the Seymour is obviously still focused entirely on competitive shooting though. The front lens is a massive 29mm with a very thin bezel that virtually disappears when you shoot with a target focus, more so than any tube-style optic I've ever seen. These are also available with a variety of dot sizes from 2 MOA all the way up to 16 MOA. The emitter diode can also be swapped out on the fly with any of the other sizes, which you can buy from Seymour a la carte. Extremely cool for a competition shooter who wants to try a bigger or smaller dot size or reconfigure for different types of target. You may have to slightly adjust your zero after swapping the diode, but probably not by much. Okay, but how does it work on a try-hard tactical AR-15? It works great. Shooting is shooting pretty much, and Seymours are great to shoot with. The big window and thin bezel makes it easy and fast to acquire the dot no matter what gun it's on. The glass also has very little tint or distortion. It truly is a dot floating in space. The CTRW might be peak red dot for close quarter shooting. There are optics with bigger windows, but they tend to have thicker bezels or armored shrouds that hinder you more than the big window helps you. Still, there are a lot of things about this optic that don't compete with modern red dots. This stuff wasn't a deal breaker in the 90s, but it's tough to justify now. Battery life of the Seymours is rated at 300 to 1500 hours depending on brightness, which is about as bad as red dots get. The Seymour uses a 2L76 battery like the older Comp Series Aimpoints or the current Pro model, but at about a 50th of the battery life. This is not a battery you can pick up in the checkout line at the grocery store. I usually order the Streamlight 2-packs they sell for the TLR6 Weapon Light series. It's the same battery. I mean, it is fairly late in the afternoon. It's an overcast winter day. I have the dot turned all the way up, and I still feel like I wouldn't mind it being a little brighter. Other than that, GMI. So we're leaning more in the direction of 300 hours of battery life rather than 1500 hours, and it's still a bit on the dim side. That's quite a bit worse than an EOTech. Like a lot of legacy red dots, the Seymour is also a pain to zero. The windage and elevation screws have smaller locking screws to keep them in place that you have to loosen before you can adjust the zero, and there are no discrete clicks, so you're just guessing how far to turn them. You also need 3 Allen keys and a flathead to maintain this thing, a Torx T20 for the mount, a tiny hex key for the grub screws that hold the zeroing screws in place, a larger hex key for swapping the battery and or the diode, and a flathead for adjusting zero. Being able to zero a red dot with a tactile half MOA click using the edge of a spent casing is a luxury I think we take for granted these days. One last thing, the CTRW is night vision compatible, but only just. The lowest 2 brightness settings are for night vision, but they're actually way too dim for all but the darkest conditions, and the lowest daylight setting is way too bright. The glass clarity under NV is nothing to write home about either. This is the click adjustable brightness model though. The full model name CTRW stands for Click Tactical Railway. There is also the TRW, which doesn't have discrete clicks for the brightness adjustment, but instead uses a no-shit infinitely variable rheostat. Finally, I can use the word rheostat in a video without microelectronics pedants writing a whole-ass manifesto in the comments. I guess it's possible that the rheostat-controlled Seymour can be more easily fine-tuned for night vision, but I still wouldn't recommend it. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. Seymour's popularity with competition shooters is a no-brainer. Why shell out $600 for a Trijicon SRO when you can get a red dot with a big-ass 29mm window, a gigantic 16 Hojillion MOA dot, and it's made in the United States for only $300. As an added bonus, it weighs enough to neutralize any remaining recoil of the 9mm Major from your $4,000 hard chrome Tanfolio. This is a really cool optic, considering how old it is, and considering it was designed by a dentist and prototyped with materials he had in the back room of his clinic. Big windows, thin bezels, and large dot sizes are probably never going to go out of style with competition shooters, so this thing's gonna keep on winning. Seymour's mimetic popularity among a certain Tunisian sea kayaking board is harder to explain. It's not the sort of thing you put on an AR you're going to toss in the back of your truck for a weekend shoot at the gravel quarry. But if we have to meme about an optic, I'm glad it's this one. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this channel, make sure you subscribe, and you can also support me directly via Subscribestar. There's a link in the video description. You'll get access to some bonus stuff, but if you're really that interested, I suggest you click the link and read about it instead of listening to me talk. See you guys next time. Choosing the best optic. Gonna make it.
Gonna make it.